Hi, I'm Eddie, and I'm 17. I've never had any friends, and when I finally got one, she turned my life into a total mess. So much so that I don't even speak with my mum anymore. Here's the thing, because of my dad's job, our family had to move a lot. Because of that, I was homeschooled. But my mum forced me to participate in various sports, or with other kids in skill networks. And unlike my parents, I've always hated getting acquainted with new people. I used to think, why would I do that at all? If in the next few months or a year at most, we'll be moving again, and I'll have to meet someone else. So once, my mum brought me to a computer class, and there, I didn't have to engage with anybody but a machine, and I loved that. So it's sort of become my passion. Gradually, I mastered new skills in computer graphics, and began to enjoy drawing my own comics. My mum often got mad at me for sitting in front of the screen all the time, and she invented different stuff to keep me from doing it. For example, once she invited our neighbours to the house, and they had a son who was my age, and she kind of forced me to socialise with the guy. So, I was sitting at the computer, and he appeared to be fond of sports. Well, actually it was the only thing he could talk about. At some point, he started saying that computer guys were weak nerds, and I told him that athletes were stupid. So we began arguing, and I got really furious, to the point when he was leaving my room, I pushed him as hard as I could, and he rolled head over heels downstairs. It's needless to say that after this incident, our neighbours didn't even say hello to us. When I turned 15, my dad switched to another position in his job, so that we'd no longer have to move all the time. We settled in a small town, and for some strange reason, my parents decided that it would be better for me to go to school like everybody else. Everything was new and strange, and as soon as everybody found out that I used to be a homeschooled computer nerd, they behaved as if I was cursed. Some of them played nasty tricks on me, like putting glue into my locked lock, or painting my chair so that I ruined my jeans. Apparently, my mum was hoping that since I started school, I'd immediately have lots of friends. And when this didn't happen, she kind of got worried, and that really began to bother me. Once, for example, she said that she wanted to buy me new clothes, but when she finally managed to lure me out of the house, it turned out that instead of the mall, she took me to a psychiatrist. This literally outraged me to the core. I stayed silent during the whole session, and all the way back home, Mum kept putting me down for that. Mum didn't get discouraged either, and began to arrange parties at her house, where she invited mostly couples with children, and literally forced me to hang out with them. But as soon as they figured out that I didn't even have any social network accounts, they started thinking that I was weird or something. It was to my advantage, because I could freely go to my room and do my favourite thing, draw comics. By that time, by the way, I'd made enough money to print out several of my works at a printing house, and on the very day that I was carrying my freshly printed work home, I ran into her. Leah. Everything fell out of my hands, and she dropped her handbag, and all of its contents scattered across the sidewalk. Feeling awkward, I began to apologise and started helping her collect everything. But suddenly, I noticed that she'd taken one of my books and began to study it carefully. For a minute or two, I just looked at her, and on the one hand, I felt indignant at the fact that she just took it so boldly. But on the other hand, she was the first to see it, and I was wondering what would happen next. She showed a vivid interest in my comics, and made a few comments, and we started walking together, and arguing over it, so that I didn't even notice how we suddenly appeared standing near my house. From that day on, we began meeting at cafes, and sometimes at my house, and working together on comics. It turned out that she also used to change cities and schools, and her parents resembled mine a lot. I was 16 back then, and she was already 18, and it was probably because of that age difference that it was so interesting for me to hang out with her. It turned out that there was some sort of computer graphics club in the town, and she not only took me there, but also joined it with me, even though she wasn't that into it herself. Gradually, I began feeling a romantic attraction towards Leah, and was ready for anything with her. And at some point, she began taking advantage of it. For example, once I found out that she really wanted to go to the beach. It was pretty far from where we lived, and there was no chance of getting there without a car. I knew that my parents would never allow me to go that far on my own. So, I lied to my mum and said that I needed to take her car to help a friend of mine move. She was so happy that I, supposedly, began to have a lot of friends, that she agreed. But when Leah and I were in the car and on our way, she started begging me to teach her to drive. Of course, I wanted to make her happy. But then something went wrong. She got distracted, hit a tree, and damaged the front part of the car. I couldn't tell my parents the truth, so I had to say that I was driving. And they grounded me for this. There were also a few cases when Leah complained about not having any money, and I was willing to help her. So, I gave her all my pocket money that my mum and dad gave me. And once or twice, I even secretly took my dad's cash from his pocket when he had some. He was so surprised to find out about the loss, but, of course, I pretended that I knew nothing about it. I was just so proud of myself for being able to help the girl that I liked. But then, I kind of screwed things up when I finally decided to show Leah how I felt about her. One day, we were sitting in my room, trying to come up with a new comic book idea. At one moment, she bent so low over the table to draw something that her hair touched my cheek. But as soon as I tried to kiss her, she immediately bounced back a couple of feet. We stared at each other for a couple of seconds, but it felt like eternity had passed. I started saying how sorry I was and promised that I'd never do anything like that again. But Leah cut me short and said that it was actually her who was sorry for what she was about to tell me. And that's when I found out that my mum had literally bought her for me. She paid Leah the day we met each other to make her be my friend. And she even promised to up the payment if she succeeded in becoming my friend. Leah's eyes were full of tears. She begged me to forgive her and kept saying something else like that she really enjoyed my company and other stuff like that. But I didn't want to listen to her. I didn't believe her anymore. I guess it's needless to say that I immediately kicked her out of my room. I locked myself in there and didn't respond to any suggestions for my mum to go out. She understood nothing, so I realized that Leah told her nothing. I felt that my whole world had just come crashing down. At first, all I could do was lie on my bed, trying to get rid of all the memories of my friend. And then my eyes wandered over to my shelf with my comics, or rather, on the part of it where my work was stored, and the ones that Leah and I had managed to come up with together. And then, I did what I'll probably regret for the rest of my life. I destroyed each and every one of them. From that day on, I deliberately tried to not even look at my mum. And of course, I wasn't going to discuss with her what happened. I just kept silent. At first, that made her furious. Then, she got desperate and started begging me to explain everything. Then, she and my dad even took my computer out of my room as a punishment and promised to send me to a special camp for screwed up kids. But even this didn't help. While my parents were freaking out around me, I just kept lying on my bed, staring at the ceiling. 2 weeks passed, when one morning I went down to the kitchen to have breakfast and saw Leah drinking coffee and waiting for me. I had no intentions of talking to her, but something inside me didn't let me leave the kitchen. She said that she used to date one guy, but that he had gotten into a lot of trouble. In order to help him, she took all the money that her mum had at home. But he went to jail anyway, and Leah was afraid that her mum would find everything out. So she decided to try and earn that money herself, as fast as she could. By a stroke of luck, her aunt, who was actually one of mum's friends, told her about my mum's problems with me, and Leah had the idea that she could become my friend for money. But the more we hung out together, the more she liked me, and when I tried to kiss her, she understood that she had to be honest with me. I know that this might sound awkward to many of you, but during that period, when we weren't socializing with each other, I missed Leah a lot, and I doubted that I could ever find someone else to be so close with. So, I kinda decided to give her one more chance. By the way, we agreed to not tell my mum that I was already aware of her vicious plan, so that she'd continue to pay Leah for her friendship with me for a few more months. She still had a couple of $100 to earn, and I still have no intentions of talking with my mum.